You have a decision to make. It isn't even a big one. Maybe it's a message you need to send, a plan you need to commit to, a choice between two options that are roughly equal. And yet your brain won't stop. It cycles through every possibility. It runs the scenarios. It imagines the outcomes, then imagines the outcomes of those outcomes. It finds new angles you hadn't considered. New risks. New ways it could go wrong. You tell yourself you're just being thorough. You tell yourself you just need a little more information. But the information arrives and the loop doesn't stop. It just finds new material to work with. That loop isn't a personality flaw. It isn't anxiety in the clinical sense, though it can become that. It is a survival system running a program that evolution designed for a world with genuinely lethal consequences. And understanding what that program is actually doing changes everything about why you can't seem to turn it off. Here's the part nobody tells you: your brain doesn't overthink because it's broken. It overthinks because, for most of human history, getting a decision wrong didn't mean mild disappointment. It meant death. And the system built to prevent that outcome is still running, inside every trivial choice you make today. Let's go back. Way back. To the African savanna, roughly 200,000 years ago. You are living in a band of 30 people. And every decision in that world carried genuine stakes. Which direction to travel. Whether to trust the stranger at the edge of camp. Whether the rustle in the grass was wind or predator. Whether to challenge the dominant member or hold back. In that world, there was no room for casual errors. A wrong decision about a food source and you starved. A wrong read of a social situation and you were expelled from the group. A wrong assessment of a threat and you were dead. The cost of being wrong was catastrophic. The cost of being slow, merely inconvenient. So your brain developed a systematic bias. A built-in asymmetry in how it weighs potential losses against potential gains. Psychologist Daniel Kahneman at Princeton University and his research partner Amos Tversky spent decades mapping this asymmetry. In their landmark 1979 paper introducing prospect theory, they demonstrated something that overturned assumptions about human rationality that had stood for centuries. Losses, they found, feel approximately twice as powerful as equivalent gains. Losing $20 produces roughly twice the emotional impact of gaining $20. Not because of the money. Because of the ancient neural architecture processing the experience. Prospect theory. That's the name. Here's what it means: a framework describing how humans evaluate potential losses and gains asymmetrically, with losses weighted approximately twice as heavily as equivalent gains in the emotional calculus of decision-making. And here's why it matters to you: every time you overthink a decision, your brain is not neutrally evaluating options. It is running a loss detection program that is actively scanning for what could go wrong, weighting every negative outcome more heavily than the equivalent positive one, and refusing to stop until it feels the risk has been fully mapped. The problem is that in a world of infinite variables, the risk can never be fully mapped. So the loop continues. But here's where it gets stranger. The overthinking system doesn't just scan for external losses. It scans for social ones. And in ancestral terms, social losses were often more dangerous than physical ones. Being wrong in front of your group. Making a choice that led to failure in front of people whose opinion of you determined your survival. Losing status. Losing alliance. Losing the trust of the people who decided whether you ate, whether you were protected, whether you belonged. These weren't just uncomfortable outcomes. They were existential ones. So the overthinking loop doesn't just run when the stakes are objectively high. It runs whenever the stakes feel social. Sending a message. Making a request. Committing to a position. Saying something in a group. Your brain cannot tell the difference between a decision with genuine survival stakes and a decision that merely feels observed. And in that inability lies the engine of most modern overthinking. Researcher Sian Beilock at the University of Chicago studied what happens to cognitive performance when people become too aware of the stakes of a decision, a phenomenon she called choking under pressure, documented in research published in 2001. What she found is that the analytical brain, when it over-monitors a process that is normally automatic, actually disrupts its own performance. The very act of thinking too carefully about a decision can degrade the quality of the decision itself. Think about the last time you overthought something so thoroughly that you arrived at a worse outcome than your first instinct would have produced. That isn't failure of intelligence. That is the loss detection system overriding the faster, more intuitive processing that would have served you better. Your ancient survival brain hijacking a modern cognitive task. And here's the cruelest part. The loop feels productive. It feels like you're doing something, gathering information, reducing risk, being responsible. But research on decision fatigue by Roy Baumeister at Florida State University, published in 1998, shows that extended deliberation depletes cognitive resources without improving outcomes. The longer you run the loop, the worse your eventual decision tends to be, and the more exhausted you are when you make it. Have you ever noticed that your best decisions often come quickly, almost before you've had time to think, and your worst ones come after hours of deliberation? That's not coincidence. That's the difference between your integrated intuitive system and your overloaded analytical one fighting for control of the same choice. The next time the loop starts, the next time you catch your brain running the same scenario for the fourth or fifth time, finding new risks in old material, try to name what loss it's actually trying to prevent. Not the surface loss. The deeper one. The social one. The one that connects back to belonging, to status, to the ancient fear of being wrong in front of people who matter. Because underneath almost every overthinking loop, there is a nervous system trying to protect you from a world that no longer exists. The stakes are almost never what your brain thinks they are. And the decision you've been circling for 3 hours? Your first instinct probably already knew the answer.